Well, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Gans. He is here today to speak about hyper-parenting and some other terms that you can use: hot housing your kids and pressure cook kids. Sounds very quite serious. Let's talk about what exactly these topics or these terms mean.
Yeah, well, hyper-parenting, I think it's just, we want to do the very best we can for our kids, and we want to give them the exposure to the broadest number of experiences they can and build them in some real resilience so they can do well as adults once they leave our care.
Okay.
And the problem is that sometimes we overdo it.
Okay.
And we overschedule them. We micromanage is what this would be analogous to in the business world. And so that's what we find is happening with a lot of parents right now.
Okay, now is this something that is new, maybe with the internet? And I don't know, we always blame everything on the internet. But is this something that's new relatively in the last few years, or something that's always kind of happened?
I think it's a little bit new, because before there just weren't as many things that were available for kids to do, and now there are so many different options that kids can have and parents can have to entertain and to educate their kids. And I think there seems to be a shift in society where people are thinking, well, if I'm a good parent, I got to have them in soccer and ballet and 15 other different activities. And I was watching Oprah one day, and they were asking this woman where she lived, right? And she says, well, in a white minivan, right? Because I'm always driving the kids around somewhere.
Yeah,
I forget where I park, right? And that's a prevalent attitude, unfortunately, with a lot of parents right now, is that they think that's what parenting is, and if I'm not doing that, I'm a bad parent. And when really the opposite is true.
Well, even myself, I think, I wish I would have taken dance classes when I was younger. I wish I would have done that. So you have this idea in your head, well, you're going to give your kid just a little taste of everything, so they can make sure that they have all these experiences. That seems maybe the natural good thing to do. But today we're going to learn how to find that fine balance. We'll be back in just a little bit, but now head over to Rod. Back with Dr. Gans, and just continuing along the lines of what Rod and I were speaking about. Let's talk about how hyper-parents are created in the first place.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of times, like Rod was saying, you want to have your kids in as many things as you can, and then give them that broad exposure. Another problem, though, happens when parents tend to not have their own lives. And so what they do is they live their lives through their kids, right? And so the kids got to be good at ballet, or they got to be good at hockey, or they got to be good at whatever. And even if they don't physically tell the kids this, they absorb that energy, they get the message, and so now they feel this added pressure to perform, and even sometimes they might not even like the activity, and what's worse is they might not even know they have a choice to like the activity or not, and they keep pushing themselves, and and it can be.
And they don't want to let their parents down.
That's right. Don't want to let the parents down.
I think on American Idol, it was just in the news that they banned one of the contestants' dads from being backstage because he was that sort of hyper parent. And then, like you said, how do you know if you even really like the activity, or if you're just doing it? And what about if the parents had a lot of pressure put on them when they were younger? That kind of probably continues along, or maybe because you always say, well, I'm not going to be exactly like my parents. Maybe do you think people recognize that, or they unconsciously could do that to their own children?
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the stuff that we do is unconscious, and so if we were raised that way, it's very easy for us to pass that on to the next generation, and then they pass it on to the next generation as well. Unless people watch Help TV and see all this good stuff. And,
wait a minute, they just get a bright idea. Well, let's talk about some of the health effects it has on your children if you're a hyper parent.
Well, one of the things that you can notice right off the bat is just a lot of irritability sometimes. If things are, if they're overscheduled, they might not be getting enough sleep, and so you can see irritability, you can see lowered school performance. You can just sense in the home a sense of chaos as well. And usually that's not just the kids, it's also the parents. Everybody's kind of on edge, and everybody's kind of tired and burnt out, but they're still moving, almost like on automatic pilot.
Yeah, exactly,
right? Yeah.
So that sort of thing. And then what about the social aspects? I can imagine if you're a very competitive person, then maybe...
Absolutely. You're always pushing. And the problem here is, there's two problems. There's the problem that, the activity right then and there and what's happening then, but you're training the kids for the future. And so what you're training them to do is to be over-scheduled in their lives. So we're training little workaholics, little type A personalities and bringing them up. And also you're training them not to use their imagination or to find ways to occupy themselves because their lives are already scheduled for them. So they just kind of show up and, okay, we're going here now, and okay, we're going there now. And so they have no chance to really sit and settle and what do I want to do with my time? Maybe I can just daydream, or maybe I can go and build a fort, or I can do this.
Just a little bit of independence.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, not to mention, too, we were kind of talking about this off break, the social effects it has on the parent as well. I was just thinking about when my friends and I all start having kids, we're very competitive, so I can see that trickling down into our kids. And you were telling me about how, well, your kids can feed on that, and they can tell that energy is there. And the same type of thing, they don't want to let you down. But we'll just maybe get into that just a little bit later. Thanks, Kim. I can't take credit for this idea, but too bad there isn't full contact debate team, like you said. I don't know if that would be the best idea, because then you'd really get your aggressions out. But maybe for my friends who, were very opinionated and that sort of thing. And we touched briefly on it about competitiveness in your circle of friends and when you start to have your own children and that sort of thing. And I have to say that my friends and I aren't to the extreme, and we don't have children. But if you are in that situation where maybe one parent really says, oh, my child's the best at this, my child's the best at that, or really is it creating that competitive spirit with your kids, how do you avoid that?
Well, I think the biggest thing, like all parenting, it starts with the parents, right? And for the parents to remain grounded is extremely important, because just because one of your friends is saying this doesn't mean it's true for you. Every child, every family, every couple is unique and different. And whatever it is that you're doing has to work for you. So that's the main question that people have to think about all the time. Is what I'm doing working for me right now and in the long run? Right, long term. So if your friends are saying, oh, my child's the best at this, oh, good, I'm very happy for you. And don't even get into the discussion, because once you get in there, it's, you get sucked in, you want to do better, they want to do better. And the kids pick up on this, right? And then so they really want to make mommy and daddy proud, so they do stuff. And we build a generation of people who are working for other people's happiness instead of their own.
It's a lot of pressure.
And it's too much.
So what you're actually saying right now is that it's okay if your child isn't the best at everything?
Absolutely, yeah.
Really?
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. But I mean, it's important for some parents to hear that it's okay if your child is not the best at everything.
That's right.
Maybe they don't want to be the best.
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe they just want to learn about it and just be good and have fun at it. It's okay. The important thing is that they do their best, not be their best, right? Just do their best and have fun with it. And the other thing to remember for parents is that even if you've done some of this stuff, if you overschedule, I know I've overscheduled myself and my kids sometimes. It's okay. It's just it's because we have their best interest at heart.
Right.
But really, just take a step back, take a breath, and just
recognize
see.
It.
Yeah, exactly. What is going on? Is it really that healthy? Is it giving you what you need in the long run for you and your kids?
Okay. Well, what about if you have maybe your spouse, your husband or your wife? They're the competitive one. They're the one at the hockey games screaming at the kid, or vice versa. How do you try and convince your spouse that, hey, we need to calm down, because that can be an even touchier situation than your friends?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the important thing to remember is that, first of all, you may be able to work on your spouse a little bit, but you're not going to be able to change them, okay? And the other thing is you cannot do the opposite of your spouse to try to bring balance to the family. That's a common mistake. You see that a lot in separated parents or whatever. I'm going to overdo the other side because their other parent does that. You have to be the most balanced that you can be as the balanced parent, and just live from that center and from that balance, because it's important that they have at least one role model that they can look at, because kids learn what they live, not what we teach them. Okay. If they see it and they experience and they're paying attention to the parent, that's what they're going to copy. So if my wife, for example, is overscheduling the kids, well, my job then is to be balanced. So I'm going to take them to some scheduled events, and when I have them, I'm also going to give them a lot of unstructured time so they can play and just kind of work their imagination and do that sort of thing.
I like what you said. Kids, they
live what they learn.
They live what
they learn what they live.
They learn what they live.
Not what you teach them. Never.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have more information coming up with you in just a little bit, so stay with us after the break for more Balancing Your Kids. Thanks, Rod. I have a question for you. We're talking today about, pushing your kids. There's a difference, I'm guessing, between ambition and competitiveness.
Yes.
Because I would say that I'm ambitious and I'm competitive, but they're different, right? I think I can turn off my competitiveness sometimes. But so how can you deal with the parents who just says, no, I want my child to be ambitious. I'm just ambitious for them.
Well, ambition to me is wanting to do your best, wanting to go farther, wanting to see how far you can go. Where competition, there's this sense that there's somebody else involved, and it's about making sure I'm better than that person, or putting that person down, or crushing the competition, or whatever. So competitiveness, I think there needs to be some competitiveness, a little bit, but again, anything that's overdone is too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so ambition's more about yourself.
Yeah, it's about seeing how far you can go.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the solutions then. If you find that you realize I've been hyperparenting my child to the extreme, what are some solutions that you can do to help change things around?
Well, first thing is, and this works for pretty much any parenting problem, first of all, work on yourself as parents, okay? Make sure you slow down a little bit, make sure you take some time and look after yourself in some ways. Then once you start taking that time, then you'll be more objective when you look at your own family. Check out the space, check out the tone of the family. Is there a lot of chaos in the family? Is there a lot of anger, a lot of tiredness? If there is, you need to start cutting back on activities. Okay. And what I suggest is you cut maybe, next year or next term, whenever activities start, you cut them by half, let's say, and just see what happens at home. If home still remains chaotic, you may need to cut some more down. Let's say home is calm then, and then you can start adding activities back one by one. Slowly. Keeping an eye on the tone of the home, also checking with your kids, seeing how they're doing. Do they really like basketball or wrestling or whatever it is they're doing? Also seeing how their school is doing, how they're doing in school, and their overall health. Like, are they getting enough sleep and that sort of thing? And then also checking with your partner. You and your partner have to also be calm. You can't, the kids can be totally happy, but you can be totally exhausted and not have time or energy for anything else. So everybody in the family has to be doing well with the activities of the kids and whatever is happening at home. So that's a big solution right there.
I've always wanted a big family, but I don't know, I'm starting to get anxiety right now thinking of how would you do this with 3 or 4, 7 or 9 children, you know what I mean, which my grandmother had. So
two are wearing me out. So.
Okay. Yeah.